Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed congregants, cherished guests, welcome to this gathering where we come together to reflect upon and celebrate the profound essence that binds us all, the nature of humanity. In the heart of this sanctuary, let us embark on a journey of introspection and revelation as we explore the intricacies of our existence, our connections, and the ever-evolving tapestry of what it means to be human. From the dawn of time, humans have been characterized by their insatiable curiosity, unquenchable thirst for understanding, and remarkable ability to innovate, create, and empathize. We have traversed vast terrains, both external and internal, uncovering the mysteries of the universe and our own inner workings. As we stand on the precipice of a new era, it is essential that we pause to examine the threads that weave our collective story. Okay. In case you couldn't tell from the gender binary of ladies and gentlemen, an address I would never use, all of that is ChatGPT. That's what it spit back out as the first two paragraphs when I asked it to write an opening to a sermon on the nature of humanity. Could you tell that it was not my voice? Please tell me you could tell it was not my voice. Please. Okay. Who thinks they did a good job guessing on the slideshow? How did that feel? Did it go well? Did you get most of them right, most of them wrong? Was it a total mystery? Total mystery. Okay. Now, I want to sort of be clear. I did not ask the AI to write a Unitarian Universalist sermon. So it's possible that it would have gotten a little bit closer. Those two paragraphs probably had some tells that might not have been present if I had asked it to tailor its voice. I didn't ask it to write in my voice. I'm not sure there's enough of my text on the internet for that to be possible. I will tell you, though, that my reaction to reading what it spit back out at me was that it lacked a sense of intimacy and a sense of depth. I'm not going to read you all 8 paragraphs that it spit back out. I don't think it's worth our time. There were a bunch of platitudes in those 8 paragraphs. Definitely some phrases you might hear in a UU context, but there was no story involved, right? And there was, I want to say, like, no emotion. It was a coherent whole, but it lacked fervor, passion, individuality, creativity, personality. For those of you who didn't get a chance to see the newest Indiana Jones movie, I'm going to explain why we're using it to talk about AI. And there's no spoilers this time. AI is not related to the plot of the movie, but related instead to how the movie was made. This 5th installment of the Indiana Jones series is much closer to the original films than the dismal 4th one that I hope you didn't see. This one is full of action and plot twists and excitement and a classic, like, race with the Nazis over an artifact. The movie follows Indiana Jones in the 1960s, so 20 years after the action of the original films, but it begins with a 20-ish minute segment which takes place back in the time of World War II, okay? Now, just brace yourselves for a second, because when I say this out loud, you may have the feelings that I do about the passage of time, but Harrison Ford is 81 years old. Given that he's in his 80s, though barely, a 20-minute segment set at the same time as the original films, during the filming of which he was in his 40s, posed a problem, right? They couldn't hire a look-alike. Everyone would know it wasn't him, and the nostalgia would not feel the same. And so the producers of the movie made use of AI. Harrison Ford acted his scenes with motion capture sensors, as if he were like an actor portraying a CGI monster. But the editors then used AI trained with all of the footage from the original Indiana Jones films to generate a young Harrison Ford and superimpose it as like the CGI. Okay, so it didn't even actually need to be Harrison Ford doing the motions, because no matter what, they were going to superimpose this younger version of him onto whatever was created using the CGI. So put in layperson's terms, which is what I needed, they digitally created Harrison Ford based on his previous movies. And 20 minutes of the movie was that. And I will say, I don't know how many of you saw it, but it was pretty decently done. There were some moments when the illusion sort of fell apart or was noticeable. But I will tell you that it was not hard, for me at least, to look past the illusion and just enjoy the movie, especially if you're someone like me who has that nostalgic feeling for the indie that was. And I could easily imagine watching an entire movie done this way and willingly looking past the imperfections. The AI that enabled that scene is similar to the generative AI of tools like ChatGPT, Bard, DALL-E. These types of artificial intelligence are designed to mine data available on the internet, text, images, statistics, depending on their focus. And then when asked to produce something, a piece of art, an answer to a question, the opening of a sermon, they pull from all of that data to generate something that it thinks will be familiar or accurate or reasonable based on all of that data. So it's kind of like a giant collating machine, taking anything publicly available, whether the taking of it is ethical or not, and creating a vast bank of notes from which to spit back something that resembles human speech or art. Now, often in the image-based ones, there are strange inaccuracies. I don't know if you've seen these, like an extra leg in a crowd of people, or a finger, or they just totally misinterpret the prompt that they're given. And the text-based ones can be bland, I might use the word soulless, impersonal in the way of the first two paragraphs I recited to you earlier. But more troubling is that nothing in the AI algorithms as they stand at the moment requires them to be tethered to reality. So the image-based AI can generate convincing pictures of baby peacocks. I don't know if you saw this one. We'll see if Lily can put this up. This one on the side here with the blue was circulating the internet, and everyone was like, oh, baby peacocks are so cute. This is not what a baby peacock looks like. That's what it's also cute, but that's what a baby peacock looks like, right? Text-based AI so frequently generates false facts that there's actually a term for it now. They call it hallucinations. So the best story I know is one guy shared with me that a pair of lawyers discovered these hallucinations when they attempted to use ChatGPT to research legal cases to support their position in court. And ChatGPT responded with completely fabricated citations. And when they challenged it, the AI was like, no, these are real. And then the lawyers filed with those false citations, and you can imagine what the judge did with them then, right? Science fiction frequently depicts the dangers of AI as being when AI becomes sentient and takes over the world, destroying humanity. You may have seen movies or TV like this. In late March of this year, Time ran an opinion piece by Eliezer Yudkowsky, who is, quote, a decision theorist from the US and leads research at the Machine Intelligence Research Institute. Yudkowsky is convinced that we are creating something unregulated that we don't understand, and that the not so far off eventuality is the death of humanity. It's a very bleak picture. Every sci-fi TV show or movie that you can think of that depicts AI attempting to eliminate humans has us winning in the end, right? But Yudkowsky is completely convinced that we never ever could. That it would be the equivalent of a 10-year-old, this is a quote, a 10-year-old trying to play chess against Stockfish 15, the 11th century trying to fight the 21st century, and Australopithecus trying to fight Homo sapiens. So his recommendation is that we need international regulations that step us back further and further away from AI until we have a plan that prevents it from taking over and destroying us. His fear is maybe overblown, also somewhat convincing if you're a bit of a quasi-Luddite like I am, and I would probably honestly sign on to his plan to shut it all down. And I'm not going to necessarily recommend that you go read this piece because I did find it bleak and it totally triggered my own existential angst, and it feels pretty hopeless, and I'm not in the business of hopelessness. But I do think he's right that we need to understand those bigger and broader perils that lie around the bend as we potentially create AI that we have no control over. And I think there are also more immediate, more evident, and obvious problems that our current AI already poses. Among those immediate risks is the increase in mistrust. Even ChatGPT, when I asked it directly about the risks it poses, understood the potential for misuse and for a breakdown of trust. This was its response. I don't possess personal motivations, emotions, or consciousness, so I'm not inherently dangerous. However, like any tool or technology, the impact I have depends on how I'm used. Oppenheimer. It goes on. The concerns surrounding AI's potential dangers often stem from misuses or unintended consequences, such as spreading misinformation or bias if not properly supervised and guided. As for trust, it's important to approach AI, including myself, with a critical mindset. Trust should be built on transparency, verification of information, and a clear understanding of AI's limitations. In essence, trust in AI should be earned through responsible usage, informed skepticism, and informed decision-making. So that's how ChatGPT answered when we were like, what is your danger? Why are you dangerous? And it brought back the conversation again to technology and the responsibility that we bear. Just as the atomic bomb changed the world forever, so the internet has changed the world forever, and so will AI. We run into trouble, I think, when we let our technology outstrip our understanding of its threats, outstrip our regulations, outstrip to some degree our own humanity. AI may be an object, but it is one that can move beyond our capacity potentially, and more immediately can be used for ill. I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know when I say that misinformation and disinformation have been a plague on our political scene and our culture for decades. Misinformation has been a weapon in the arsenal of cyber warfare, interfering in elections and manipulating voters across international borders. Conspiracy theories have become more compelling, and they have driven action as widespread information that is convincing and feels urgent and is also completely false has led to actions like QAnon's various things and shootings and riots. And we cannot forget that the previous president led a campaign in an attempt to overturn an election, a campaign of false information masquerading as fact that culminated in an attempt to storm the Capitol. While ChatGPT and others are not intentionally creating false narratives for their own gain, they sound very human, but they have no motivation. They can be used by humans to create convincing news that further manipulates people into adopting dangerous agendas. AI is like the next step technologically in the long-standing lying and trickery that some humans engage in. This shadow side of humanity has been enabled by the internet and will be further enabled by AI. So again, we're on this question of tools and their use, and on the one hand, the accessibility and availability of information made possible by the internet has had major positive impacts. The revolutions of the Arab Spring, for example, were facilitated by the connections the internet can create. People with uncommon medical conditions can more easily find each other and form community. COVID-19 required us to reach out through technology when human contact was dangerous, giving us connections we otherwise would have lost. There have been some wonderful upsides to the technology of the internet. It's at its best when it provides a way to connect humans to humans or to accurate, helpful information. It's at its worst when it creates isolated pools filled with mis or disinformation. And the problem is that generative AI relies upon access to the data that the internet provides. It mines that data, whether we want it to or not, and whether that data is accurate or not. It doesn't judge the accuracy. The fact that ChatGPT manipulates without an agenda, creating disinformation without a deliberate will, makes the conversation much more complex. At the end of the day, its main purpose is to generate language that feels and seems natural and human, raising incalculably the risk that the lines between fact and fiction will just continue to get more blurry. The work that it takes to discern what is real and false on the internet gets harder and harder. And without educating each other, and especially children, on how to spot truth or fiction on the internet, we head deeper into a world where fact and fiction become the same. We've seen the beginning perils of that, and I am sorry to say, I think we will only see it get worse and worse. Now, the other, perhaps more subtle, perhaps more obvious danger that I see at the moment is the potential impact on human creativity. Very interestingly, ChatGPT actually thinks this is where its strength lies. So you can see what you think about all this. But when asked about its benefits, this is what ChatGPT said. Generative AI, with its remarkable ability to produce human-like text, art, and even music, holds tremendous promise across various domains. It has the potential to accelerate creative processes, aiding artists, writers, and designers in their work. In research, it can assist in hypothesis generation and data analysis, propelling scientific advancements. Now, it's easier for me to see the benefits of generative AI in scientific hypothesis generation and data analysis, assuming the data that it's fed is accurate. The positive impact on creative workers like artists, writers, and actors is harder for me to accept. Generative AI could be described as a very sophisticated form of plagiarism. It does its work by looking at existing examples created by real artists and then mimicking what it sees. The first 20 minutes of Indiana Jones were not Harrison Ford. It was work created in the style of Harrison Ford. Visual artists, writers, poets, and musicians whose individual creativity populates the internet have found their work recreated or mimicked by AI machines. The strikes in Hollywood turn in large part on the notion that Hollywood writers or actors could have their original work scooped up by generative AI and mimicked with slight changes, like a student rewording an essay they've copied, without any compensation to them for being the basis of the product. There's an issue of labor and ethics and intellectual property here, an important issue to be sure, but it also goes a bit deeper than that. Many times in the last 10 years of preaching sermons, I have spoken about the nexus of imagination, creativity, and empathy. And I think that what is at stake here in the use of generative AI for creative pursuits, and I'm aware this might sound a little hyperbolic, but just go with me. I think that part of what is at stake is the preservation of part of what makes us human. Our capacity to create, to imagine, and from there to understand one another feels a little bit on the line. If I sit down to write a poem for my father on his 75th birthday, it's a very different thing than asking a computer program to write me a poem for my father on his 75th birthday. In the first instance, I am using memories, emotions, feelings, imagination to create something true, right? That I believe will impact, delight another human. I'm engaging in a sort of human-to-human contact that involves a level of thoughtfulness and remembering and creativity. In the latter case, I'm going to say I'm outsourcing my human creativity. If I sit down to draw an image of a seal on a bouncy ball, that involves a set of skills that become unnecessary if I ask a machine to create the image for me. And I think that that kind of outsourcing eliminates the need for patience, for practice, for the cultivation of creative skill. You could say that we're still using our creativity by imagining the idea of the seal and the bouncy ball and then asking the machine to do it. But increasingly, AI will have the capacity to generate not only the thing, but the idea for the thing. Meaning, we're not so far from a time when a movie studio executive could ask generative AI to write an action movie and then have generative AI create that action movie, requiring little or no skill or ingenuity from the humans involved. Just data-based creation of impersonal, bland, and probably financially successful material. When generative AI, rather than humans, create text or artworks, they're doing it by looking backwards at what has come before and cobbling that together rather than inventing something wholly new, to the extent that anything's ever wholly new. But they're putting something together from what already exists, bit by bit, plagiarizing, stealing, making use of the ingenuity of others. So new movies can be made, but maybe not innovative ones. New art can be produced, but not cutting edge art that advances our understanding and aesthetics. It's hard to imagine like that shift that happens with Picasso. It's hard to imagine AI that is backward looking and generative making such a shift. The potential, I think, for innovation becomes wildly reduced. It's much easier for generative AI to spit out another Indiana Jones movie than to imagine something fresh that we've never really encountered. And the thing is, while I love nostalgia as much as the next person, I was quite comforted by the Indiana Jones movie. What pushes us forward as a species is not returning again and again to the toys and stories of our youth. We don't discard them, they matter, but so too do new creations that push us, new stories, outside the box thinking. Without innovation, creativity, ingenuity, without the need for human imagination, I think we're going to lose something, some piece of what it means to be human. So I get that there are great potential uses in the medical fields, and I get that once let out of the bag, it is hard to put this kind of technology back in. I don't presume to know enough about these tools to know that we should shut it down right now, as Yudkowsky says. Clearly some folks think that. And clearly we are running ahead of ourselves in some ways. And ultimately, as we've said over the last couple of weeks, we have responsibility for the choices that we make. And too often, our technology goes past our capacity to understand what we've made, where it might lead, and what the costs of our endeavors might be long term. Too often, we view the immediate ends as justifying the means, or we allow hubris to lead the way and we lose our sense of shared humanity and what is right. We forget that what is real matters. And we stop focusing on our shared humanity and how our futures are absolutely entangled, that we live and die with one another. I think that all of our explorations this month about objects and subjects and technology and responsibility and wholeness and what is real come back to a central question. What does it mean to be human? What do we want that to mean in the future? Victoria Safford's poem that we read earlier maps out an experience of life describing how we learn through active engagement with the world around us and the moments of our lives. As if looking at plots on a map of her past, she articulates poetically, metaphorically, in human language with passion and depth, the turning points of a life and their potential for meaning. And as John Dietrich described humanism in our opening words, it's an engagement with the world, not a removal from it. Engagement with other humans and our condition and our future, not retreat into relationship only with some God or some other ideal or some computer. Here, we believe in the active participation in creation. We believe in meaning making, in the kind of existence that Barbie learns to long for and chooses at the end of the movie. We believe in science, yes, and the value of technology and advancement used well to improve our shared humanity and quality of life. And given all that, I'm not sure that we're called to believe in the passive consumption of data by generative AI that attempts to mimic and replace human creativity and engagement. I'm not sure, and I would love to know your thoughts. What I am sure about is that we believe here that humanity is not inherently bad, that there's goodness in us that can be cultivated and nourished. We believe that our fate is not sealed, that we have choices, and that personal responsibility is a right and a privilege and a responsibility. We believe that our future is intertwined, that our interdependence is indisputable and real and transcends any boundary or prejudice or false distinction. We believe that truth exists and that discerning it matters, for living an honest life of integrity and purpose. We believe that our humanity is an irrevocable fact that carries rights to safety and liberty and justice. We believe that what binds us across all division is not simply that we are made of the same star stuff, but that we share common experiences of pain and joy and love. We believe that we have the capacity to change ourselves and the world through intentional, thoughtful, and conscious living. And so that's what we do. We create, we make meaning, we commit to one another, we lift up humanity in all its confusion. We take responsibility for our choices, and we work hard for individual and collective improvement. May this remain our mission and our commitment long into the future.